Not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying that's a fact. Reacting factually gets you higher average viewers, and if you're not doing it, you're going to be below the curve. I think that's a fact. And I don't think it should be on creators to try to be morally righteous while they're competing against people who are doing it, while they're just going to fail. Taking a React video, which is just taking someone's hours or weeks of work and then profiting off of it, is bad. Reacting is generally a way for streamers to fill content with higher level content because they're reacting to someone else's. So not only do you have already the floor of what the video you're watching is, but then whatever you add to it, even if it's like making a PogChamp face, what do you do about it? Okay, reacting's lazy, sure. Sometimes reactors f over creators, absolutely. What do you think about this? Every Ludwig Twitch stream ever has 88,000 views. Me reacting to it on my clip channel has 1.2 million views. Is that f***ed up?
In August of 2021, my wife and I were sitting down watching a Ludwig Reacts video, and it dawned on me that over the course of my consuming reaction content, how many times did I ever follow through to go watch the original video or even subscribe to the original content creator? And honestly, it was kind of embarrassing to find out the answer was 0. I looked at it and I said, oh my gosh, I'm actually not following through. I'm not clicking on any of these links because mostly we were watching it, especially on TV. But the reality of it was I wasn't actually watching the person who put the video and the content together. I was watching either a compilation, a reacts, a laugh you lose, and it didn't feel good. Like I kind of felt like, what is going on? What am I doing? Because I was also at the time making reaction content. So I sat down and I kind of made an announcement like, listen, I'm not going to be making this style content anymore. And we'll also talk about, there is, I think, a clear difference in reacting to a game trailer or reacting to a cutscene within a game I'm playing versus actually reacting to somebody else's, a content creator's video. And we're going to explore a lot in this video. Hello, everybody. If you've been subscribed, by the way, this should feel very natural. We've been building up to it as I've shared the results of what a reaction content looks like in terms of the numbers of the creator. Now I'm going to show you guys what reaction content looks like from the concept of a reactor. So we're going to dive into my statistics. We're going to look at the data. And I think honestly, at the end of the day, I think you're going to walk away with more of a discussion. Hopefully this is what opens up kind of a discussion. I'm not sitting here to attack anybody's point of view. I want to kind of just open up the discussion because I believe I actually have solutions to the problem of reaction content and what it means for the reactor and also the reactee, namely because at the end of the day, there's a huge demand for reaction content, and there is a huge demand for it, whether you like it or you don't. It's just a numbers game, and we're going to explore that and actually kind of show you guys kind of really what some surprising numbers are. So hopefully you guys enjoy this video. That being said, when I realized that about myself, that's when I decided to stop making it. Now, the reaction to me stopping reaction content is actually quite interesting. Making reaction content, very positive, like got thank yous, got, oh, this was so wonderful. Oh, I really like how you react. You're such a good reactor. Like there was 10,000 voices speaking positively to like every one negative voice saying like, oh, reaction content, I don't like it. So overwhelmingly, continually positive reinforcement from a reactor's perspective, despite the fact that I didn't actually follow through to see if people were going and looking at the source material. And why would you? You get busy, you move on. Anyhow, that's essentially the message while reacting. When I stopped reaction, people message me, why are you stopping reaction? You're so good at it. Like, this is really good content. For everybody who says that they don't like reaction content, there's 10,000 plus people saying they do. It's going to kill your growth. It's going to hurt your channel. And that's essentially kind of the message that you get. There's a huge amount of positive reinforcement for reaction content, and not saying that's good or bad. It's just strange to me when I sat down and thought about it, because I asked myself, like, what do I want to make as a creator? What do I want to understand? And I felt like I understood what reaction content was. I felt like it is a discussion, and I still do. Like when people react to my content, I actually enjoy watching that content because it kind of feels like that discussion's being had. However, when we start to talk about kind of the arguments for and against reaction content, I think essentially the data is going to paint a different story. There's a belief that I hear that is shared whenever I sat down to talk about this one-on-one with people about what people believe reaction content does, but then I think the numbers actually paint a different story, and I think that this will be a great video for us to explore. Now, I've been building up to this, but one of the coolest things that happens is I'm not the only person here on YouTube. So I want to do a shout out to Dark Viper AU. He put together an incredible series of content that I actually got to watch this weekend while I was putting all together my notes. And so it was, I think, whether it was fortuitous timing or more, I'm going to have a link to kind of his big video. I would highly encourage you to go and check it out for yourself. But there's a lot of other little videos as people have critiqued his main points. And so it's, again, a good, interesting point of discussion. The goal and objective of this video is to offer, at least from my perspective, what I believe to be real world solutions, things that we can, as creators and also consumers, hopefully demand of YouTube. I think essentially when we talk about the problem of reaction content, it ends up being a platform-driven problem. And the reason it's a platform-driven problem is because reaction content currently falls under fair use. Whether you believe it or not, whether you want to accept it or not, note that reaction content, if tried to be claimed, generally speaking, YouTube actually slaps the person trying to claim it. Now, there are obviously exceptions to the rule when it comes down to what fair use and what actually really applies in this case. And I do stand and want to support fair use. The other side of this as well is that people said, well, what choices do we have? What tools do we have? And I want to explore some of those ideas here in this video. Before we dive into what I believe to be the solutions to the problem and how I think as both creators and consumers, we can start to try and make YouTube a better space, because when we look at reaction content and the demand for it, I think Dark Viper actually points out a couple of really key interesting things, is that you're more likely to actually go and watch the reaction than you are the original video, even if you end up being subscribed. And what we've seen in some cases, people might actually skip the original video because they're going to wait for the reaction video to actually happen. And so you can actually see content creators negatively impacted overall. Now, there are cases, and I've seen a lot of people make arguments that there are positive interactions that can happen to creators with that exposure. This is what I call kind of a warm handoff. There's a better warm handoff out there, and it would be called a collab. It would be called something in which that you have that ability to introduce somebody to somebody else. And the reason why you don't see, 30,000 people going and watching that specific video from somebody they've never heard of is, generally speaking, they might not have heard of that person. They might not know that's a good video. They might not know who's in there. And so it does take a little bit of effort to have happen. Now, the other key aspect here, before we kind of dive into the stats, is that the algorithm is kind of the key and the big problem with all of this. The reason why the reaction wins is A, it's longer. B, it also includes the original source video. C, people are more likely to engage with the reaction video over the original video, even if you see, generally speaking, a 1 to a 5% click through of that. You don't actually get the watch time on that. And I already kind of highlighted that in the previous videos, but we'll also explore that here today with you guys as well. So note that this is going to be an all-encompassing video. Hopefully you guys get something good out of it. Again, this is the idea to promote discussion and talk about what things are available to us as we grow as a platform, as we grow as creators, and hopefully we can have some really positive and things that kind of move content forward, so that at the end of the day, everybody can really make good content. I think ultimately, when it comes down to it, that's the goal. So let's go ahead and explore that, and hopefully you guys enjoy. Let's dive in to some actual numbers. All right. So here we are. On the left-hand side, we have me doing a reaction. And on the right-hand side, we have a video that gets reacted to. And I think very clearly you can start to see some interesting numbers here. Now, when we look at the revenue, just note that the revenue could be impacted by a wide range of things, depending on the CPM at the time, what's going on YouTube. Revenue, I don't think, is essentially the real story here. The real story ends up being how many people engage, how many people come back to the video and to the channel, and more. I think the key takeaway here, first and foremost, is in a reaction, like when it comes down to it, the lesson that immediately comes clean from all of this when we talk about the demand is that I should make more reaction content. Overall, people generally continually be positive about it. Sometimes you might even get the original creator. But note that even at my size, which isn't massive, people generally, that there could be a level of clout that they feel like they can't ask me not to, that they can't, etc., because they want that exposure. And that exposure is almost kind of like there's kind of a diminishing returns kind of graph line that you could almost kind of chart out. Like at first, like you're just happy that anybody sees your video. But then at some point, point when, especially you put in tons of hours of labor, you're like, wait a minute, like they should watch that video before they watch mine. And it ends up being kind of a human condition issue as well as as well as the algorithm. Now, generally speaking, this video has obviously been out longer. Overall, like 10,000 more views due to this time. This has been around a lot longer. You can see here a general kind of overall creaking of the line. With the current video that's out that was reacted to, the line has pretty much kind of leveled off. There's still overall views that are coming in, and there's still views that are actually coming in on the reaction itself. Thing I want to kind of point you to both is in terms of subscribers. You look here clearly, Asmund actually reacted to this video, 108 subscribers. The last time I sat down and showed it to you, it was like 106. So not a huge subscriber growth. Asmund reacted to it actually around this point, so it wasn't necessarily even a big driving factor. His reaction getting posted did drive people to the video itself, and we saw kind of generally speaking when we start to look actually the details of where views and things like that are coming from, that did help a little bit, but ultimately ended up flatlining the video itself. And that is essentially kind of the nature of the story. 108 subscribers, that could have been primarily a number of them coming in at earlier on or more. It can't really break it down, but if we go ahead and just say 108 came from his reaction overall, in this case, me reacting to something else going on that's essentially a hot topic and trending, just under 500 subscribers. So this would tell me that I should absolutely be making more reaction content. Then if we get into it, and this is kind of where when Dark Viper talks about the impact, the real impact when it comes to impressions, reaction content sucks those up for itself. And that's essentially, like, I believe that to be absolutely true. Let's look at the numbers. So on the left, 1 million impressions of a reaction video that I made versus 117,000 impressions. Now, a higher click-through rate that is happening with this video, and that's because this is overall current. If you start to look at kind of click-through rate over time, at the beginning of it, it was really high, and it has since then dropped off. If we jump in here, you can see the click-through rate bouncing up and down, up and down, up and down overall. And that is, I think, very, very critical in terms of how these things are viewed algorithmically because of that watch time. It's not necessarily the views, but then again, the watch time in and of itself overall much higher, with an average higher watch time than the source video, because obviously making a long video takes a lot longer time, but a reaction video can actually be both long and engaging because it requires the source video as its base. So I think that's essentially something that really comes down into it. Now, overall, this isn't like a condemnation of your viewpoint. Please don't take it as this way. Like, I like to be a guy who looks at the data and kind of presents it for you in hopefully an interesting way. And I find data to be very interesting when it comes down to it. So you see a massive average view duration. So when people start to search, this is where that video comes into play. When people start to search and want to kind of find this video, it's going to go to Asmongold's reaction each and every time. And so his video is still getting those views, and his video is still getting those reactions. But this video essentially has been, pretty much done. And that's okay, because there's also the aspect that the topic in and of itself has moved on. This was more about kind of something that's happening in the moment rather than something overall evergreen. And we've seen that happen with other reaction content itself. But now I want to kind of pivot and talk about what I think some of the solutions can be to solve this problem. So like I said, reaction content can serve as a warm handoff to somebody new. And that is something we see happen. And the other thing about that, though, is it does require multiple reactions to the creator. What's faster, the fastest track would be a collab, a podcast, things like that, which help introduce people to other people. Because at the end of the day, from the consumer perspective, you could be busy. There's a lot going on. You might just find somebody you end up liking in terms of reaction content and end up getting kind of your news as a curated feed. So if you want to sit here and condemn that fact, just note that right now, as it exists today at the time of this filming, people find value in that. And the reason why they find value in that is the numbers reflect it. Like, whether you want to have, whatever you believe about reaction content, it is what it is at this moment in time. But how can we make a better content ecosystem? How can we help make it better for everybody? This is my personal view. Like, you do not have to agree with it, but at its core, again, I think this ends up becoming a platform issue in which that, like, if you think about it, we talk about ways to kill your channel and kill you as a content creator, like going off and doing strikes on the original video. We've seen that have bad negative effects. Generally speaking, it looks like you're trying to silence critique. It looks like you're trying to silence a video, and it doesn't play out well as a part of the narrative. And so I do not advocate for strikes. However, I think that we should demand and we should talk to YouTube. We should continue to provide the feedback that from a reaction video, if we, and this will be interesting to see what it would ultimately change out, is to be able to link to the original. And when we talk about a join, I think kind of in database terms, if we joined a reaction to an original video, I believe that it would be great to see the original video actually share in the watch time and the likes in terms. So if a reaction video gets, 1,000 hours of watch time, those 1,000 hours should also apply to the original video, despite even if people don't go and watch it, thus promoting itself naturally in the algorithm. The key issue ends up being is that just being subscribed to somebody doesn't actually have a real impact. Now, I would love it if you subscribe to this channel. Don't get me wrong. People still look at those numbers, but those numbers are more in terms of like, oh, is this person worthy of my time? Oh, they already have a large following. Maybe I'll check them out. So it ends up, there is a benefit from a psychological perspective, but from an algorithmic perspective, not so much. In fact, that's something that you're going to be seeing me share later here maybe this year, hopefully, in terms of like channel and, anyway, it's a fun video I've been working on for a long time. Hopefully you guys enjoy that in the future. Now, when we look at it, like not just in terms of like watch and likes, though, it'd be really cool to see some form of revenue share. Now, depending on where you are in terms of your content creation path, you might just be happy with exposure. But over time, you might end up sitting here and saying, like, I put a lot of work into this. Like, I put a lot of work into this video, and to have it basically kind of sucked out from under you just for that kind of, in a way, light promotion, that warm handoff. And it really isn't an advertisement because like you don't put a full movie, in a trailer. Some people do. Some people put all the good parts in a trailer, and people end up going to see the movie and they'll be like, that was pretty pointless, right? And then they kind of learn. And so you end up having to kind of figure out what is kind of your litmus test. You could try and go and approach the bigger content creators, but I think that ultimately could have a big level of backfire. So I think the system or the solution ends up being kind of more petitioning YouTube to build in features to be able to kind of link rather than a claim, rather than sitting here saying like, you can't make that video, you can't do that. I would like to be able to say like, hey, this is a reaction to this video itself. Join them. There should be some form of share in terms of both algorithmic watch time and likes. I think that would be really kind of the coolest thing to see, personally speaking, because imagine if then your video, the original video, was what actually got pushed, to trending. I actually went and started looking at numbers over on like Asmongold that were not the Depp and Heard reaction videos, and some of his reactions to people who have like 10 or 15,000 did hit trending. But then you go and look at the click-through rate on those, and it isn't great. It isn't something that's like, oh wow, like that really made my channel. When I've heard people say like, oh, Asmon's made my channel, your channel is actually already made. He might have just kind of added a little bit of a boost here and there, but some of the numbers actually do dip down, and it doesn't necessarily contain that continual conversation being had. And so, like I showed you guys in the numbers, like it is actually more in my interest to make reaction content. I even seen some of the bigger content reactors say that, just make reaction content. And essentially then this is kind of where we get into this weird kind of standoff when it comes down to it. First and foremost, well, like one way to do it, which this is all hypothetical. This isn't me saying any of this is going to happen. Imagine if people just stop making videos. You would essentially suffocate. You would starve out the reaction content creators, and so then people would be like, oh, they don't actually have anything to react to. That won't happen. People like making videos, whether they're doing it for like a business or just for fun. Like that, the reactor will find things to do and to fill the time, because when I look at, just Twitch alone, a lot of that is them filling time. They have obligations in terms of how much time they need to be live. And that is a very cheap and easy and, as people might say, a lazy way to kind of fill that gap by, powering off of like, 100 videos that, individuals kind of, like work to create. And then essentially kind of they can use that to kind of bolster their own demand. So like you'd have to starve them out, right? I don't think that ultimately is a solution, because people clearly want that kind of style content. So I think essentially what we would again have to advocate for. But YouTube is a slow moving beast, and when it comes down to it, that's kind of sucks. Like we have to figure out what we want, and I think essentially that might be a huge help. I've seen people have it say like you should say stop recommending channel or ignore this and that. I think to assume that the majority of people would even do that, I don't think that's going to play out in the long run. And maybe that's me being naive. I'm going to be fully transparent like that. You know, maybe that's what all it's going to take. My thing is that I think this is a database join, kind of solution that would help play out in the long run. You might simply ask for people to not react to your content. For me personally speaking, I always say like, feel free to take my content and react to it. Like and just link to me. I'd like to go and usually give it a watch when it's up. I hope that essentially this was, something that's kind of informative, and the answer is make reaction content for the time being. And that sucks, because I would rather, like, people want more original content, but we're also hesitant on it. Like, so there's all these, like, in my mind, and this is kind of me just like at the end of the video, there's no scripts, there's no more bullet points to kind of talk about. Legitimately, it's like you have the fact that people have, people are creatures of habit. They feel comfortable watching with said reactor, getting their take, memeing on whatever, being a part of that as kind of a community kind of movement. That essentially is, not going to change unless other things change. I think something that doesn't kill that mindset is the share mindset, and then essentially giving the original creator the ability to do that, and then essentially having those hours and that shared also on the original would help then promote the original algorithmically over the others. But again, like, this is a part of hopefully opening up a discussion. Hopefully this was useful insight when it comes down to it. So if you got people telling you, like, oh man, I'm glad I'm not doing reaction content. I did a recent one diving through kind of the whole drama that happened like 2 weeks ago within the 14 community, namely because I knew that was a way to like be able to go through and have the context of the full video, because it essentially became fair use, and that video is essentially protected, and YouTube protected it from any kind of strikes. So that was a real plus. Generally speaking, like that, like I don't like making reaction content, and I don't plan to start. And that's, I think, hopefully a key takeaway you get from me. You're free to do and choose how you want. But if anything else, what I would love to see is that feedback that I gave here, especially about the idea of joining and sharing in the algorithmic things that YouTube prioritizes to help kind of trickle into the original videos. I think that could help, I guess, be the best of both worlds, because I can't change how people consume content. I can't change how people make content. But I can change how databases get joined together. That is something that I think is within our power. It might be a slow process, but essentially, if we unite our voices, that could be something that could be good from this. Anyway, guys, I'm rambling. I apologize. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully you got something good from it. Go check out Dark Viper AU if you want some real detailed statistics, if you want a really good listen, some really interesting insight into this entire React conversation. I think he did an excellent job. I really appreciated his videos. I'm not gonna, sit here and react to him. That's something that I think people probably have done, or who knows. At the end of the day, there's a lot of stuff out there to watch. But I'll leave you with that. Hopefully you guys enjoy your week. Hopefully I'll see you in my next video. But until then, take care.
Yeah. It's time to chill out on the couch and read some comments. That's right. You know me when it comes to Destiny. I'm off with a clan, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Oh yeah.